Hey everyone, it's me, Gazbot, and this is the horror production update number 2. I'm outside. Why? So I can fart in peace. Well, that took quite a while.
And we're back, that's right. Okay, so it's been a while. It's been about going on 2 weeks, and I'd wanted to do these about once every week. And I wanted to do that just to kind of keep a steady stream going with people watching so they know that I haven't disappeared and to keep myself accountable a little bit. But getting back from Japan and catching up on client work, and I've also, speaking of Japan, been putting out video travelogues, I guess, although kind of after the fact, of my days in Japan, of which I've only done 2 so far, so I have 2 days out of 2 weeks, but they're like a half hour long each, and they take a little longer to put together than I thought, because of all the pictures and things I'm putting in them. So, I'll put a link below if you want to check out those days, the Japan days, that is. But meanwhile, I'm here, I'm back, and I have worked on the horror in the meantime. I'm going to try to get back on a weekly schedule. I mean, ideally, like, the daily schedule, I think, was very good. And I'm already kind of missing that. Not that I'm jumping back into doing the daily 100 Days Part 2 just yet, but I definitely have fallen in the trap of not working on it every day, thinking, well, tomorrow I'll do an hour. Well, okay, I didn't do it for 2 days. I'll do an hour and a half the next day, that sort of thing. And I crunched the numbers a little bit, and it's been about 13 or 14 days since my last update. And if I did, it was 14 days. So if I did a half hour each day as the minimum of the 100 days, which I was sort of trying to keep myself to, even though I'm not technically doing it anymore, that would be 7.5 hours work on the horror, at a minimum. Although when I was doing the 100 days, I would try to do better than that. So I counted up the hours I worked in the last 2 weeks on the horror, and it's been 7 hours and 15 minutes. So I'm 15 minutes shy of the minimum of what I used to do for 100 days of making comics. And I never went a whole week where I only did a half hour at a time. So I'm way below what I was doing. Cut myself a little slack because, like I said, I got back from vacation, and a big thing, aside from just like readjusting to real life, was catching up on client work. When I left, I had caught up on all my client work, but then when I got back, I had some stuff that I had pushed off, like, oh, well, this doesn't need to be done until after I get back, so I don't have to worry about it. And then a few new jobs that cropped up, including some caricatures for the corporate client that comes back again and again, which I've talked about, which is such a great wellspring of you know, funding every now and then. Like I said, it's not the most creatively fulfilling thing, but it's been years, and like, I keep getting them. So I did 3 that I knew I was going to have to do, and I was like, well, I need a week or so, whatever. They're like, fine. About a day or 2 before those were due, when I turned in like 2 or 3 of them that I needed, but not, I think I owed them 1 more. They said, oh, we need 2 more, and this was a Friday, and they said, we need them by Monday if possible. And as I was reading this, I'm like, I'm going to need a rush fee on that. And they're like, we'll pay a rush fee. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even have to ask. So I said, okay, I want time and a half. And they're like, that's fine. And I'm like, damn, I should have asked for double. So they paid it, and I went ahead and did that. And the same client then had a request for a revision on one of them, which I get occasionally from them, and I give them kind of a low price because usually there's no input on what's on the body. It's just like a regular office casual dress outfit, and usually there's not much feedback at all because it's not like somebody's child or, you know, grandpa's, you know, 70th birthday or something. So it's usually a lot more smooth sailing. I just do my thing, done. I don't show them any roughs or anything. But occasionally I get revisions, and I charge them for that because, you know, it's not factored into the price. But anyway, I get some revisions that are like, oh, can you change the color of the pants? Or this person decided after the fact they want to be wearing a suit jacket instead of a, you know, button-up shirt, that kind of stuff. But sometimes I get, you know, oh, so-and-so thinks their nose looks too big, or so-and-so. And then in this case, it was a woman who wanted her face and waist to look thinner. And I did it, and I got paid for it, so fine. But it's funny because on some of the caricature jobs I get, and not all, and what I'm about to reveal to you I'm not proud of, I occasionally trace, sort of. I don't literally trace, but I'll take the photo and blow it up and bring it into Photoshop and kind of get the outline of the face or some broad strokes in my rough, and then I'll tighten it up, you know, so it doesn't look completely traced, and I'm still picking things. And I don't do this all the time. And again, I'm not particularly proud of it, but it's sort of a means to an end of a not particularly creative job. Because while they call these caricatures, they're not. And I've said this before. They're just sort of like lightly cartooned versions of people, which again is not particularly fulfilling. So if I can get it done quicker and they like it better and I just get paid, you know, I really feel like it's an assembly line job, you know? So, but what's funny is on this particular one, this woman she's an attractive woman, but she has sort of a, you know, strong cheekbones and, you know, and so I was having a hard time getting it. So I did kind of go in and do my little trace trick so that I know that the shape of her face is exactly the shape of her face because I traced it. And she wanted to be thinner. She's like, yeah, I have a thinner face than that. And it's like, I know you don't! I know you don't! Because I traced it! Now, I can't say this. I mean, I could, but it's one of those weird things where even though I put the effort in and there was artistic choices, because I used that little shortcut to get the face shape, I could see them being like, what? You know, maybe not, but I'm not going to take that chance because this is a steady income thing. But it's frustrating that I can't throw that out. But it's like, all right, well, so then I took it and made it skinnier and longer than, you know, it actually would be in real life, which is sort of the point of caricature, to exaggerate. But then I would have given her, like, big old cheekbones and a big old chin, and, you know, that's not what they want. They want not just a cutesy cartoon version, but an idealized version. Similarly with the waist. I didn't make her fat or anything, and she wasn't, but I give everybody kind of a regular cartoon body. I don't give the guys big muscle bodies. I don't give the girls, you know, hot bikini bodies. They're like office workers. So I just kind of give, like, you know, her body was like, bloop, you know, just 2 lines. But instead I had to go and give her like the hourglass, which almost no one else has in the office, including other women with thin bodies or even hourglass bodies. You know, I do it a little bit, but it's supposed to be just a little cartoon, and they're printed real small too, so it doesn't really matter. But I just think it's funny the vanity of some people, and as long as it results in more cash for me, I don't really mind. But it's, you know, I don't know. It's funny to me that out of like the hundreds and thousands, well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of people I've done at this company, very few have complained, and the ones that do are always the ones that are sort of attractive people-ish, you know, and these real weird minor complaints that are made to make them look even better than they normally do. Whereas, you know, I'll draw some big fat guy with crazy big ears and they'll be like, ah, good, funny, I don't care, you know? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. Anyway, I spent a little bit too much time on that.
Did you guys eat that whole pizza? And then you're just gonna nap? Well, yeah, alright, fine.
In addition to maybe slacking off a little bit, in addition to not keeping it up every day and kind of, you know, filling in the gaps where I can, and if I do that on a weekly basis, that's fine. But on 2 weeks, it's like there were, you know, 2 or 3 days where I didn't work on the horror in a row, and I don't want to get into that bad habit. But the other reason is for recap purposes of what I did with my work day, what I worked on the horror, and even just little anecdotes I want to tell and pointers I want to bring up. I now have 2 weeks of backlog of everything that's happened. When I was doing it daily, it was easy, because it's like, here's the artwork I did for clients, here's the work I did on the horror, here's a funny thing that happened to me, here's a rant about art. Done, you know, and not even all of those necessarily. But now I have 2 weeks worth, and it also starts getting muddled up in my head. I've given myself notes. Towards the end of my 100 days, I gave myself notes. Now, I want to avoid doing this as much as possible, but for 2 weeks, I gotta kind of look at my notes a little bit. So, I am on the 100's Tumblr. I'll put a link below. The 100's Tumblr originally was a list Kevin Cross and Peter Palmiotti had done of just everyone who's doing the hundreds. And as it got bigger and bigger, it's kind of stopped being updated. And when I was doing it, I hadn't been put on there, and it was like, oh, you'll get put on, whatever, and there's a couple of people that need to be put on. And then they changed the parameters to be, you get on the 100's Tumblr if you complete completely your 100 days of making comics, or, you know, whatever. I think it's all comics people right now. So, having completed that, it is on there. And it was on there last time, I just forgot to mention it. So, check it out. You can see it now. Instead of being a follow these people, it's sort of a hall of heroes. Everybody on there, I'm a hero, guys. Haha. Everybody on there has completed their 100 days. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people that are still working on it that aren't on the Tumblr, and there are. I have been bad at keeping up with people. I was having a hard time even before I left because I had such a backlog. I've been sifting through people's old 100s, and I've been trying to keep on top of the new ones, but I've definitely started to fall into that trap, which I know other people have said, of just sort of watching the most recent one, even though I maybe missed the last 2 or 3. But I guess it's better to watch a little bit of everybody's than, you know, I don't know, whatever. I mean, my hope is that eventually I'll catch up on all of them, but as long as new people keep coming in, that's hard. But I'd rather that. I'd rather new people keep coming in, because that keeps the whole thing alive, and that means people are being creative and following their passions, and great. So, my inconvenience at having a hard time keeping up with videos is much lower in priority than people following their dreams. Who would have thought? My inconvenience, other people's dreams, it's not even. It's not even. Anyway, so I'll put a couple links below to a few people I know are still doing it. It's very possible I'm going to leave some people out, and I apologize. And as always, if you're watching this and you're doing it, tell me. I'll put it in the links. If you know somebody that I forgot, put it in the links. But also, I did March of Robots till the end of March. It's over now. I missed that chunk while I was in Japan, but I did a few more. Some of them I was pretty happy with. I'll go ahead and throw them up in this time.
Hey, look, kids, it's Mumbo Jumbo from Silverhawks, the 80s cartoon. And up next is 7 Zark 7, the American Abomination in Battle of the Planets. Crasher from GoBots. Ha 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 ha. And here's a crappy flying robot I invented. And here's a crappy standing robot I invented. Good!
Well, that was the March of Robots. So, looking at my notes again, I apologize for the looking down. I did work on the horror. One of the things I did was I did a redesign of the character Dan, who's the bartender. As I got to the pages with him, my style is very... I mean, it's funny because I have a couple different styles, and I've been trying to consolidate that because I'm coming from a time where I'm the freelance guy. I will do any job that gets offered to me. I can do any style, any whatever. And I've been trying to pare that back, and I've heard other people talk about this, like Kevin Cross, who gets referenced often, but, you know, he has talked about how he used to do every style, and then he tried to, like, found that when he, on his site, did more of the work he'd like to do, then he got more of that. And it's a similar thing where I also have done, like, vector artwork and stuff, and I could do it, because I used to animate, so I could just do still images the same way. But I don't really want to do that, you know, and then there's other styles I've done that I don't really want to do. I don't want to do logos, things like that, which... a job's a job, and I take it, but if I advertise it less, maybe those jobs won't be offered to me, and other ones I want will. And in keeping with that, with my style, I have my caricatures and that sort of style, but with my comic art and my illustration art, I've always sort of vacillated between a sort of comic book realism, and not real realism, but like, you know, X-Men, Spider-Man, the more realistic versions of that stuff, and a more of a cartoony animation, you know, almost underground kind of, you know, Mad Magazine style. Not consciously, this is just sort of where my style falls. And I've come to sort of a middle ground between the two, which, I was talking about this, actually, another thing, I was on Marshall Plex Couture's video podcast, The Escape Artist. He had me on there recently, and it was a lot of fun, and I was honored to be on there. It was like a 2-hour chat, just me and him, but it was a work chat, so that was good too, and I got work on the horror done that day, about 2 hours or so. It was a good chat, so I advise you check it out. I'll put a link below. I'll put a link right here. So that was good. I also did a Hundreds hangout. I think it was the second one that Scott Serkland hosted. I came in about a half hour late. That was also good. It wasn't just one-on-one. It was a big roundtable thing. But with my big mouth, you certainly hear me talking. And there was other people on there, obviously, from the 100s. Like Scott Serkland, who hosted it, and others. And I'll put that below, and also right here. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, but when I was talking to Marshall, he was asking at some point about my artistic influences, and I was saying how most of them you wouldn't see in my work and stuff, but the more I thought about it after the fact, I wasn't lying to him or anything, with this style thing, I've never really tried to be one of those artists that's like, what's my style? I gotta find a style. And I know a lot of people worry about that. That's never been my concern. I've had many other different concerns, trying to be good. You know, just like, I'm terrible, I need to be good. Who cares what style? But if I'm being honest, I didn't want to be too cartoony because I like doing action and drama. I don't really do comedy. So there is sort of there's only so cartoony you could get before people aren't going to take your work seriously, at least in the mainstream. Obviously there are independent artists, and I'm friends with some of them that have a very cartoony style that deal with heavier subjects or more serious subjects, and it works just fine. But for the average consumer, or the average reader looking at a book, if they see cartoony people, they're not going to expect it to be a heavy drama with like deep themes and stuff like that. And not that I'm saying that all my work is going to be that, but I don't want it to be dismissed as comedy or cartoony or immature just based on the way I draw. And so I vacillate this sort of, and mostly with my characters. My backgrounds are pretty much the same, and props, cars, things like that, but I tend to do cartoony faces. But I want to keep it within a certain realm of realism where they won't be so exaggerated, like a auga with like the eyes popping out. I don't want that. But if it's a little exaggerated, and so one of my influences from back in the day that I talked about was like Art Adams, who I don't really draw anything like, but he is a good example of someone who has a sort of realistic style, but definitely like kind of cartoony faces and cartoon aspects to his work. And I guess that's sort of like the area I'd like to get to, that kind of good balance. And bring this back to the redesign of Dan, my original design of Dan was... It's funny because I was going to say it was more cartoony, but I guess it was more... I don't know what it was. I just didn't like it. It was sort of, in some ways it was more cartoony, in some ways it was more realistic, but it was an unappealing looking character. And when I went to do the page roughs, which I had just like a stick figure, and I was like, well, now I'm really rough it in, and I'm like, it doesn't really look like what I want it to look like. So I did a redesign of the character, and I kind of simplified it and in some ways made it more cartoony, but yeah, it's weird. I guess I'll just show you, and it's sort of like, did I make it more cartoony? A little bit, yeah, but I also kind of thought I was making it more realistic. I know I'm not being clear, but it's not clear in my own head. This is one of those cases where I'm trying to figure it out myself. But I guess the real result is I feel like the new design is stronger, or at the very least closer to what I have in my mind. So, more cartoony, less cartoony, I don't know, but this is the way going forward. Let me just show you the old one and the new one, and you could figure it out for yourself. Here's them, bam, bam, bam. That's weird. I don't know if my arms like that looks weird to me. I have a little teeny monitor. I don't know if it looks as weird on a big monitor, but it almost looks like somebody else's arms. Like, you know, when somebody puts their arm like under your armpit, that's what it looks like to me. I think I think it's because you can't see where my sleeves connect. Oh, you there? Hi. I'm just amusing myself. This little monitor is dangerous because it's good for framing and lighting and all that, but distracts me. So anyway, I redesigned Dan. And then I worked on roughs on the pages. Let me grab my notes again. And I finished up page 13, which I had been working on previously, and that was sorry for the reach, had been a difficult one with like the perspective outdoor shot. So I finished that. So I'll go ahead and show you 13 where it was and where it is. So here's 13 and where it is. I've also since then done the roughs for page 14 and 15. So again, progress made, and even though I did put in less time, I kind of got further ahead, but part of the reason is, I had talked before also about my roughs vacillating. I used to have 2 steps in my roughs, where it was sort of like thumbnail, rough, pencils, quote unquote, and then inks. And a lot of the pages, when I was going in to do the roughs, they ended up becoming my digital pencils. And I think on these pages, it was a little closer to my rough phase. So it might result in more work down the road, but I got them done. Anyway, I'll show you 14 and 15 here. And like I said, they're a little bit rougher than the other roughs I've done. So 14 and 15, coming your way! There they go. Anyway, if you notice, I put the word balloons in, which I was trying to remember if I'd done early on. I have it broken down in the script, what's going to be said on each page. But I started getting to a point where I remember having issues when I wrote it. Because I wrote the whole story, beginning to end, scripted out everything. And then I broke it down into issues. And I wanted it to be like 4 issues, but I'm like, that's not going to work, so it'll be 5 issues. And I think they vacillate between 20 and 26 pages per issue. Because I wanted it to be roughly comic book size. Or, again, a chapter, whatever. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to print at least the first issue at this point as a floppy. Might not make financial sense. But again, I'll probably do print on demand, so it's a very low risk and, you know, whatever. So, I wanted to condense it, A, because I don't want tons and tons. I don't want it to be a 400-page book. I wanted it to be a 125-page book. Really, I wanted it to be like a 40-page book, but that just couldn't work. So, the other thing is, there's a lot of talking and a lot of dialogue. And I don't want it to be just bam, bam, action. I want it to have a story, and I want to develop characters. But I also know that page upon page of people talking can get boring. And I also don't want to be drawing extra pages just for that, too. But what happens is I have a lot of dialogue condensed on these pages. And I have like, you know, I try to keep it to 6 panels per page, which is sort of an arbitrary number, but it seems to be a good average. And I don't always succeed. And a lot of these pages have like 7, 8, 9 panels with like multiple speech balloons, which on the one hand covers up a lot of the background, will theoretically make my drawing easier, although I have a tendency to draw through the background anyway, even if it's going to be covered with bubbles. But it's... You know, as you can see, there's bubbles everywhere, and I might need to pare the dialogue down a little bit or add a page, but I'm reluctant to add a page. And it's this thing of being sort of a new writer, and in many ways a new comic artist, even though I've done it, but, you know, it's this kind of new phase and new, you know, I have all the control and everything, where I'm not sure the direction to go in, you know. And luckily, until I get to the final art, I have a little bit of wiggle room there, but I definitely need to pay more attention to where the bubbles are going to go, and in the thumbnail phase, because that's the thing. I thumbnailed it all out and said, okay, about 24 pages will reach me to this point in the story. That's a good stopping point for either a new chapter or a new book or whatever. Done. And I, you know, had everything notated in the script of what page goes where and what goes on what panel. But when I got into it, I'd have a panel that's like this big. It's like, you know, 1/8 of the page, and there'd be like 10 sentences, you know. I'm like, how, even if there's no drawing there, I can't fit that. So I kind of messed myself up a little bit, and I'm in the process of trying to fix that in regards to maybe paring down the dialogue a little bit, but also restructuring the panels a little bit, all while trying to avoid adding more pages, which I might have to do, and I'm not going to not add pages just to not add pages if it's going to hurt the story. But if there's another solution, I'm going to go for that first. So that's where I am with that. I have not worked on the horror yet today. I haven't done anything yet today. It's early. It's 10:30. It's pretty early. I've been on a regular schedule, I guess, where I've been getting up between 8:30 and 10:30 and going to bed between 12:30 and 2:30, which is a little bit earlier for me. Sometimes even earlier than 12, ever since I got back from Japan. Now, arguably, I should stay on the schedule. And Kevin Cross talked about getting up early and doing all that stuff. And if I can stay on the schedule, great. But the problem is, I know there's going to be a day where I'm going to have to stay up late working on something and reset, you know. But anyway, I'm on the schedule now. And then the funny thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, you get so much more done. I'm not getting more done. I'm getting up earlier, but I'm going to bed earlier. So it's like the same amount of time in the day, except now I have hours in the morning instead of hours at night. And a lot of people will be like, that's better. I don't think so. I like being up late at night, but whatever. Hey, there's my alarm. Also, this past Saturday before Easter, went to a flea market with a couple friends at De Anza College, I think it is. It's a big one. Didn't have a lot of stuff I wanted, not a lot of toys, and the ones they did have were like way overpriced or just generic 90s garbage that everybody has. But I did find these two. And it was like a little old lady that had no real toys, but had like a few things, and that's how it always works. This is a Power Ranger Zord from Jungle Fury. I didn't know what it was, I just knew it looked like Power Ranger-y and it was a cat. It turns into an arm of the Jungle Fury Battle something Megazord, which was never in the show. It was a toy-only, American-only release. So I'm a big fan of American-only stuff. Unfortunately, it'd probably be a little costly to get the rest of them, but I'll put them on my shelf with my Jungle Furies. And honestly, I paid $2 for this, which is a totally fair price. And the research I did to find out what it was more interesting than the actual toy, but it made me aware of something I wasn't. The other thing I got was this guy, which is Fangry, who is a late G1 Decepticon. He's a headmaster. Unfortunately, I don't have his head, but he's, again, pretty pricey. If he had his accessories and head, it'd be like an $80 figure. So for $2 without the head, he's a wolf guy. I'll take it. So that was fun. And later that day, Q and I went to see The Kingsman, which we're both kind of like, nah, it might be okay. Kind of sort of James Bondy, whatever. Way better than we thought it was going to be. And I think most people I know have given it generally good reviews. It's a little bit goofy cartoony. If you're looking for like a serious spy movie, you're not going to like it. But I didn't even realize it was based on a comic, which makes a lot of sense, having seen it, you know. A lot of fun. Goofy fun. If you go in expecting it to be serious, you'll be disappointed. But I enjoyed it quite a bit, and so did Q. The other things I've been working on as far as client work were, right now I have 2 clients left that are currently, not left ever, but you know, that I'm currently working on. Not including the corporate client that occasionally comes up to me with stuff, but right now I don't. One is a personal caricature of a huge group of friends of like 22 people that I've done the rough for, and I've kind of gathered my research materials, but it's a thing where it's not due for a long time, so it's sort of like I work on it a little bit here and there. But I got that rough done and sent it for approval. The other is Kid Switch, the comic that I am doing the art for that my friend Keith created and writes. And I had done a page on that. I'm all caught up on that. I'll throw up the page. I don't think he minds when I show stuff. And if he does, Keith, say something and I'll do something. But here's the page I did on that. It's just kids talking and a dog, you know. Kid Switch! Anyway, so yeah, so I'm up to date with that as well. The next page I already actually started working on, but I haven't been paid for it yet, but I'm kind of trying to get ahead of the curve. So right now I have this long-term caricature project, and I have Kid Switch, are the only 2 things I'm working on. I'm done with Earthling a while ago. I don't know if that's been published yet. I don't think so, but when it is, I'll let you know. I also don't think I'm going to have copies to sell or anything. It's just, you know, I got my payment, whatever. Maybe he'll send, I should talk to him. Maybe he'll send me 1 copy that I can just put in my archives beneath my home where I keep my giant penny and dinosaur, because I'm Batman! Anyway, so, what was I going on about? I guess that's it. That I have 2 clients and the horror, and ideally I will just have 1 client, and I'll be doing Kid Switch and the horror. There was a time when I was doing Kid Switch, the horror, and Earthling with the only jobs for like a week or 2 where I felt the most like a comic artist I've ever felt. I'm like, all I'm doing is comic work, it's great, and I was making very little money. But yeah, that's where we're at. So once I knock out this character thing, it's just going to be Kid Switch and the horror, which sounds great to me. And of course, the occasional pinup or commission or whatever. Today is an exciting day. I'm going to be doing taxes all day. I hate it. I hate it. I need to find a new accountant. My accountants are good, but I need to find the kind of accountant, which I know exist, where you sort of give them the shoebox full of receipts and be like, here, figure it out. Whereas what I have now is I have to separate everything, label everything, add it all up, then give them the numbers, and they put it in the sheets and, you know, figure out the correct way to input it and correlate it, which is still something I need done. But I need someone to do that extra step of doing it, because it literally, I already worked on it for hours before I went to Japan, and it's probably gonna take me most of my day, just all day sorting and adding, and that I hate it. I hate it. As you know, I hate numbers. So, moving on.
I was here Monday, the day after Easter. It's now Wednesday. Went from 30% off to 50% off. I tried one of these Orange Delight. They're delicious. They taste like creamsicles. I got a lime, and I got a lemon. These are experiments, but this creamsicle was a big win. So hopefully, guys.
So that also means it's running a little long at this point. That's the other thing. Because it's an update for 2 weeks, I have so much, it's like, I almost can't help but make it really long. Not on purpose, I didn't set out to do this, but I just have a lot to say and a lot to catch you up on. So I'm going to consult my notes again to make sure I didn't miss anything. There's a pause. One of the things I did in catching up was an Agent Orange commission, which I finished, which I'll go ahead and throw up right here. Beep! And I also did a speed process video, not the actual underdrawing, like kind of the digital pencils, but the inks and the colors, which I made a video for. I'll put a link below, and what the heck, here's a link here for Larfleeze, Agent Orange, the Orange Lantern. Okay, and so I haven't done a video, like horror production update in like 2 weeks, but I did 2 Japan videos, or 1, I forget since the last time, 1 or 2 Japan videos. I've been a guest on 2 different hangout, podcast type things. Done a process video, so I guess I haven't been lazy or absent from YouTube. I just have been reticent about my updates for the horror. Okay, here comes my old man rants.
Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants.
None of this isn't art related. So I went to Target, as I do, and I was shopping, just regular household shopping, and I tend to try to get cheap stuff. I tend to be a little frugal. Q's a little bit more about, like, get the brand name, and I'm like, well, this is just as good. It's generic puffs, and most of the time it is. But sometimes certain brands you can really tell the difference. But anyway, I was getting, I got generic, garlic bread instead of Texas toast, and that ended up being good, and I got generic this and generic that. And there were cat treats, which we need to help my cat take his medicine, and it was like on sale, so I got the 3 because they're on sale. I tend to, whenever it's on sale, I stock up and whatever. The point is I'd saved a bunch of money, and then I had to get paper towels. And I normally get like generic Target brand or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I got the recycled brand, which I like to use because I like the planet and all that stuff. And I'm like, huh. They're usually a little bit more, but I saved all that money on the other stuff that even if I get the recycled type, I'm still coming out ahead in terms of what I could have spent on everything. It's weird math I do with myself, but anyway, it was like also like 7th generation recycled, like super, you're the best hippie planet lover captain, you're Captain Planet if you buy this, baby. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to be Captain Planet. I'll pay the extra $1 or $2 for this because I saved all the money on the other generic stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like a heroic Captain Planet because I denied myself the pleasure of Texas Toast brand garlic bread and then put that into saving the planet. Good for me. Get home, they're the worst. They're the worst paper towels I've ever used. Now I know you're thinking, like, paper towels, who cares? And I agree, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But I've used generic paper towels, I've used good paper towels, the generics are fine. Like, I've used crappy paper towels. These are worse. They're like 1 ply, and you know how some paper towels, they have the option to like cut it into smaller strips? It has that, but it's not an option. You pull it, and you get like a 2-inch strip. Every time. It's so annoying. So that, like, if you want to pull a few off to have for dinner or clean something up, you're like, rip, rip, rip. Or you pull a whole bunch off, and then it's like falling apart. And it's one ply, and it's one unabsorbent, almost kind of thin paper ply. It's so terrible. It makes me so angry. And I'm like, this is why the planet's being destroyed. Our alternatives are terrible. Make me a good paper towel. You're gonna charge me $1 or $2 extra for these garbage? Ugh, and I want to do good. How are you gonna change the people that don't even give a crap? Anyway, do better, Eco Paper Towel Company. That's one of my rants. Here's another.
Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants, cranky pants. Old man rants.
Papa John's Pizza, whether you like it or not, it's in California. There's not a lot of choices for good pizza, so I tend to get chain pizza, usually Domino's or Papa John's, because I like pizza and I want pizza, and I usually get Domino's, but every now and then I get Papa John's, and I would say a fourth of the time I have a problem with customer service, and by that I mean I get there, I order my pizza ahead of time, and it's not ready, and then they lie to me. And it's weird because I've gotten to 2 or 3, and it seems like endemic to Papa John's that they hire people that are terrible at customer service and or don't speak English properly. I mean, that might be part of it. Maybe they're not intentionally doing it; they just don't understand. But this is what happened. I put in my order online: pizza and some breadsticks. That's it. And it said to be between 15 and 25 minutes. Now, every time I've gone, I'd had to wait. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna rush. I'll get there in 35 minutes. That gives them an extra 10 minutes from the longest wait. I get there. Go in. Hey, I have an internet order. Okay. So the one guy is like, da-da-da-da-da, and he's like, oh, it's going to be like 3 more minutes. And I'm like, glad I waited 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, fine, I sit down. So now, like 5 minutes or so go by. So now we're 15 minutes over the longest estimate that they gave. And I got an email confirmation, too, that they received it and everything. So it's not like it just got lost in the mail. I get up there, a different guy, the guy who had helped me first went out on delivery or something. Different guy, he's like, okay, here you go. You got a large pie, mushroom, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, no, that's not mine. I didn't order mushroom, and I hate mushrooms. So he's like, oh. So then he brought it back. But there was no, oh, I'm sorry. It was kind of like a, oh, you know, kind of like shuffled away without telling me what's going on. So I'm just standing there like, so what? You know, and then there's like 5 people there all milling around doing stuff. Not one of them talking to me or telling me what's going on. I'm like, okay. And then the other guy who I thought I got to deliver, actually, I realized he couldn't have because he came back a minute later, and he's like, talking to the guy, and he's like, what did you get? And I'm like, do you want my order number? And so he's like, yeah, like a extra large with onion. And I'm like, yes, that's me. And he's like, okay. And he's like, oh, what happened was when it came out of the oven, it like stuck to the top of the grill, so they had to make another one, so it's gonna be like 5 minutes. And I was like, all right, you know. And I was already mad because the more I thought about it, the madder I got, because he's obviously lying to me in some way, shape, or form. I mean, maybe something got stuck to a grill, but the first pizza said it would take between 15 and 25 minutes. We're now at minute like 40. So if they cooked the pizza, it got bad, they started cooking another one, they had like double the time. Like it could have been done by then. And now arguably, if it was done in the next minute or two, like he said, I guess that could have been true. But it wasn't, you know, because then I sat down for 5 minutes. I'm like, all right. And then I walked around for 5 minutes, and like 15 minutes later, I'm like, what's going on with my pizza? They're like, oh, just a minute. It'll be ready in a minute. And I'm like, so I've been there for like 20 minutes. I feel like what happened is they forgot my order, they lost my order, they ruined my order, and then just sat there doing whatever. And then I showed up, and they're like, hey, we should start making his order. But not even immediately, like 5 or 10 minutes after I was there, like, let's start making his order. And then lie to me about it. And this has happened so many times at Papa John's. Like this exact thing where I ordered on the phone or on the internet. They say it's going to be ready. I get there, it's not. And then they tell me a bunch of stuff. And then I get it like a half hour after sitting there. And so eventually I did get it. But it was another thing where that original guy left. And I'm sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And then eventually somebody's like, oh, is this yours? And it had been done, but nobody told me. So then I'm like, yes. And at one point, the guy had said, like, oh, you could get, like, a Pepsi or something for your trouble. I'm like, great, which I don't even want, but I'm going to take. So then I took a big 2-liter. I think he meant a little personal, but I'm like, I'm taking a 2-liter. And I don't like Pepsi, but whatever. Screw these guys. Papa John's, garbage, garbage, garbage. Anyway, I've been going on way too long. Got a lot more to say, but maybe I'll do another update a little bit sooner. So, this has been Gazbot for the Horror Production Update number 2. Good goes. Oh, also, there's going to be another The100's Hangout. I think Faries is hosting it this time, and it's actually tonight, which is Thursday. I'm not sure if I'll have this up today or tomorrow, but it is Thursday, so either it will be up or it's already been up on his channel. It's number 3, and I believe I will join. I think it starts at 9 o'clock Pacific time, which is my time. Goodbye!
Goodbye.